Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Getting Real About Business, powered by Strat-Fin Consulting. And today's episode is a really exciting one for us. We are going to be diving into the topic, the power of networking. And I think that you are going to find a lot of value in this episode, especially if you are one of those business owners who's been struggling with networking and trying to figure out how to do it right. But before we get into that, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dana Hayes Burke, also known as the Vision Builder, and I am one half of the powerful, dynamic duo that is running Strat-Fin Consulting Limited. And I would love to introduce my co-host, looking very good in pink. Please introduce yourself, my dear.
Hi everyone, I am Andrea Ragu, also known as your virtual CFO, and I am the second half of this power duo. We bring Strat-Fin Consulting to you, and we power this podcast.
Yes, we power this podcast. And at this juncture, Andrea, it's safe to say this is the favorite business podcast out here on these.
Yeah, I think so. I've been calling it from day one, but I think we're in there now. I'm sure this is your favorite business podcast where we get real about your business issues.
Yes. And so today we are looking at the topic, uh, the power of networking. So Andrea, just give us a quick overview of this topic and why it's relevant to our audience.
So here's the thing about networking, right? We hear the word networking, and I think we often misunderstand what it is. We, as business owners, we attend events and we expect like almost instant results from these interactions. What we envision it to be is basically, well, I go to this event and I hand out my business card and I meet all these people, and then afterwards I'm supposed to see a lot of sales, right? But that's not exactly what really happens. When you go to a networking event with that mindset, you end up leaving with nothing more than just the return business cards, because after you gave out yours, they gave you theirs. So you do the exchange, the dance of the business cards, but you don't really connect with people. So you have this pocket full of business cards and you're not really sure who was who. You can't really remember. And maybe back then when networking started, maybe there was merit in there, but now in the world that we exist in, businesses thrive on things like collaborations, connections, referrals, right? Your networking game has to be different in order for you to get the opportunities that come along with it, right? If you do networking wrong, it leads to wasted time and missed connections. And if you don't have a strategy in place, you struggle to build these relationships. And when you struggle to build the right relationships, you don't get growth, right? Because you need the right relationships that drive growth. So the problem here is it's relevant to our audience because our audience is doing it wrong. And then the problem now presents itself in lack of business growth. So what we see happening is, wasted time, first of all, right?
Yeah.
Attending the event, there's no ROI, there's no return on this effort, right? We go to this event without a strategy, and we consume time, energy, money, and we don't really know what happened. We don't really know what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
Right? So if you and the thing about it is it's wasted time, because if you didn't have a strategy, then you don't have the follow-up, you don't target the right rooms, or
Yeah.
you fail to engage genuinely. So you're just busy in the room, and then you don't have the return, right? Another way that it's preventing business growth is that with without the real connection, there's no real leverage. As I said, we're doing the dance of the business cards, right? I give you yours, you give me mine. And then what do I end up with? I end up with a pocket full of business cards and a list of people to connect to on social media. But that doesn't mean that you have a network, right? You need real connections. real relation and not connections, real relationships. Let me use that word better. You need real relationships, and that could lead to things like collaboration and like real referred potential in the future. And then this leads now to, with when you have these superficial connections with no real leverage, what end up happening now is you have some reputation damage through desperation, because you so want to make this thing work. You got the dance of we did the dance of the cards, so we exchange, and then we do, you try to follow up, but you're pitching,
Yes.
right? You always end up pitching. And because you're always pitching, you're overselling, you're trying to put yourself out there, um, it just doesn't come across as very authentic. And
Yes.
it doesn't come across as real. And in these times, that is what things like authenticity is what builds the trust. And if people feel that you're not being authentic with them and coming to a networking event for a
Yeah.
real connection, then the whole thing has failed. And
Absolutely.
therein lies the problem.
And you know what, Andrea, as I'm listening to you, I'm kind of putting myself in the space of our listeners, and I'm pretty sure that for a lot of them, you're just like hammering home a lot of what they feel, because they spend the money. You spend hundreds of dollars to attend these,
Correct.
plus you spend hundreds of dollars to get your business cards together, to get your flyers together.
Yep.
You may have people working the room with you, and at the end of it, you're like, it's still not working. And so one of the things that I often hear is that I'm not good at networking. A lot of people say, I'm not good at networking. I don't like these events. And so here we are. This episode is to help you to understand that firstly, networking is more than just exchanging business cards. It's an opportunity to create meaningful connections that can move your business forward. And the reason that you're not experiencing that is because most business owners don't know how to do it. And that's what we're going to
Correct.
explore today, right?
And there's a misconception that you feel that you have to be an extrovert to go
Mm,
to these things. We like to label ourselves, and I see a lot of people labeling themselves as, well, I can't do these things because I can't people, or I can't, I'm not an extrovert. And it has nothing to do with that at the end of the day. So I think I just want to point out that that's a misconception, that if you feel that, you need to be an extrovert in order to be, an expert at networking,
uh,
that's absolutely wrong. And we will show you why that is absolutely
I will
wrong.
show you why that is absolutely wrong. So we're going to jump right into it. And so the first thing I want to tell you is that most likely, if you've ever gone to a networking event, you've networked incorrectly or with the wrong frame of reference. And I'm not saying that for you to feel badly, but this episode is to teach you to think about it differently. And one of the things you need to think about so that you take the pressure off yourself. Maybe that's what it is. We put so much pressure on ourselves to perform, to be outgoing, to be lavish. But ease yourself up. Back it up.
Give yourself a break.
Back it up.
Give
It's a
yourself a
break.
break.
Give yourself a Kit Kat break now, please. I beg.
And
Right?
yeah.
So with that, I'm going to, in this episode, I'm going to dive into what are the 4 elements of successful networking. And so this is a good episode to take notes on, to come back and revisit again. And I'm going to start just to get us going, understanding what it is that the cornerstone of networking is. If you think about it like a house, what is the foundation? The foundation of effective and successful networking is goodwill. It's goodwill. Bear this in mind. When you lead, LEAD, with value, you leave with opportunity. When you lead with value, you leave with opportunity. And as much as you paid for your business cards, the card is not valuable. It's your character that is. So goodwill is about your own personal characteristics. And I really love that Andrea said that, you think you have to be extroverted to be good at networking. Introverts can network perhaps even better than extroverts, because extroverts tend to be poor listeners, whereas
True.
introverts internalize and make meaningful connections. So goodwill, the cornerstone of goodwill And I want you to bear this in mind. If you take nothing else away from me, when it comes to being good at networking, it's all about generosity as opposed to personal gain. So, one, generosity opens up people to wanting you in their space. Personal gain close people off. So just think about the sales call that you just got from your network provider to find out if you're willing to switch or buy something else. That's not generous. So we'd be like, no, I good over here. Right? Whereas if they call and say, yo, I would like to give you an extra 1,000 gigabytes of data because you've been a loyal customer, yeah, you are going to be more open to them. So goodwill really is what the energy that you want to approach networking with. And so if you start thinking about it now, I'm going to ask you, do you need your business cards? If goodwill is the cornerstone,
Goodwill is not on the card. Goodwill presents itself in how you speak to people, right? When people approach you, and you just start a genuine conversation. So that is why we say you don't have to be extroverted,
mhm,
right? Because at the end of the day, the first step to making that good relationships comes with the goodwill that Dana is referring to. And it does not exist on the business card, because trust and believe, if you make a very good quality connection with someone, they are going to take the time to type your name in their phone and save your contact if you don't have a business card.
absolutely. Very, very true. As we have seen many, many times. And so
Correct.
this brings us now to our favorite segment. I really believe it is our favorite segment. Fakery in the
In the
bakery.
bakery.
Bakery and the bakery. And so we're going to use this bakery in the bakery not to highlight anybody else, but to share like our own stories of our experiences in networking events, especially when we started in business. And then some of the things we've seen where networking events just get it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I remember first of all, I went to a class to learn how to network. Let's just start there. I won't call the name of the school. But some years ago, a school had a class on how to do networking. And I thought I needed it. And I went to this class and they talked about, the whole reaching out, that whole, getting building your brand and coming there and showcasing yourself. And I just I left there feeling very weird. I'll say, like, I just felt like, and I think the message I got in that was that I needed to be extroverted.
Yeah.
This was the mind shift that I had to adjust to. And as I started to do things on my own, I realized that it wasn't about being that extroverted. It was about just being who you are. And I went to events afterwards that kept putting that in your face, as, do this, and, and being out there. And I thought when I left these events, if I only spoke to two people or three people, I felt that I failed at the event, right? Because that's not, you see everybody there with the cards, and I had my call cards. You go there and think, but like it just did not feel accomplished or feel satisfied. That's the word. I
Yeah.
didn't feel satisfied when I left the event. So when I first started to do these networking things, that was my, I guess, failure in a sense. That, I kept trying to do what the book said in terms of the number, getting out there and handing out your call card and being brave and going and talking to complete strangers and it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be that way.
And start off with what do you do? What tell me about yourself? And
Oh
that's
gosh, yes, the elevator
elevator
pitch,
pitch.
and
Start
you
off with
know
elevator pitch.
practice the elevator pitch before you leave home, because, like, you felt this immense pressure. So
Yeah.
that was, when I first started out, I felt like I had to be somebody else.
And that is a problem. And so if you're trying to be somebody else, if the foundation of networking or successful networking is good, well, we're off to a false start already. Like horn
Correct.
blow, false start, it's not going well. And so in the same way, I remember when I started, it was the same thing. Like my first business, you had like a bunch, you're buying like 300 business
300
cards.
business
I
cards,
had,
because of course
I
they don't print less than 100, right?
right, I had like a portfolio thing, and I remember my first business. Of course, so those of you who don't know the story, I was an event planner in my first business. And you go to these events and you have your all your stack of things and you put it in whatever. And one of these things that I recognized that persons got wrong, right? Is that you made the event so busy. You were running from one activity to the next activity to the next activity to the next activity that you could not have a meaningful conversation with one person. So at the end of the day, I came back away with several business cards that I never called anybody for. I couldn't remember who they were. The business cards were poorly designed. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Like, what is your business about? A name and the name of your business, and I have no clue who you are. So no clue what value you add. And it was just too much. And one of the mistakes that I see most networking events make is that they think that the value of the networking event is to keep the people busy and to create opportunities for them to talk. Whereas if you allow people to move the room and talk, it will happen. And that now is where the performative thing comes from. So you practice your 15-second elevator pitch to
Yeah.
get it in there, and everybody's elevator pitching to themselves, and I can't remember your name when you're done. And
Yeah.
so Bakery in the Bakery is thinking that networking is a 15-second elevator pitch, a stack of business cards, a portfolio, and a LinkedIn profile. None of those things are going to help you to actually make a meaningful connection that grows your business, because all of it is not predicated upon, firstly, goodwill. Yeah?
Correct. Correct. And I think this is where people who throw in network events just always be mindful of the intent with which you throw it, because whatever intent you come out with, it's going to come through an event. And if your intent is just pulling numbers and building yourself,
Yeah.
then people as well who come to the event will not
Will
will be
not
the
get
same,
value, will not
and
get.
they wouldn't get and they will not get the value. So
And so we know that your net worth, your network is your net worth, right? We know that in principle. And that means that the value of your connections allows you to extend way beyond is what is possible if you stay in your own bubble. And so the value of a networking event must provide opportunities for people to make worthy and valuable connections, right? So the planner of the event must think about that. But then you, as the person who is networking, must also think about that. So first thing, goodwill. Lead with value, you'll leave with opportunity. Bear that in mind. Be your true self. Let your introversion come out and the strengths of that, right? Let your extroversion come out and the strengths of that. Once you've done that, you start now having meaningful conversations that leads to the second thing that you build on goodwill, which is trust. And so trust is the currency of your connection. I can trust if you are honest about your capabilities. So stop being out here telling me that you're the number one the number one shoemaker in Trinidad and Tobago, but I can't find you. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to look for you, and you have 2 likes and 2 follows and 2 friends. How are you number one, sir, ma'am? So don't fake your success and don't overpromise. Be yourself. Where we all have an area of expertise. Lean into that, right? Lean into that, because that is going to help people to find consistency when they follow up with you afterwards. When they try to connect with you afterwards, you don't have to remember which lie you told to John and which lie you told to Jean, so that you can get a business deal. Yeah, I know. Out.
true. Ouch.
Right? Avoid transaction. Trust is not built through transactions, right? So avoid this constant. Can I sell you something? Can I go on my website and book a consult call, or go do this or go do that? Just have a conversation, listen to the person, and lend your voice in a meaningful way. And people will begin to trust you because you're not trying to oversell them. Makes sense, right?
Absolutely. That's goes back to what I said was the problem statement earlier. The need to create that relationship.
Yes.
The need to create that relationship won't happen if you don't have that truth telling trust somewhere in there. Because in the moment you may sound good, and then when the person tries to come back and check you afterwards, you realize, but wait, the person said X, Y, and Z in the event, but now I'm seeing ABC,
ABC.
so it will fall, the relationship will fall.
And so I always talk about the fact that, so when you meet in person, I'm meeting you. I'm getting what you are saying in an unguarded moment. Then I go to the next part, which is the third element of successful networking, which is your interaction thereafter. And that is where you build the connection and the follow-up. So trust is compromised. If in the follow-up I come looking for you and I'm like, who that?
It's a completely different person because I put on a persona for the day of the event, and then afterwards
Like,
it seems like it's a
what
different
is
person.
going on? It's who is
Jekyll and what is Jekyll and Hyde?
was I catfished, but reverse? Like I was catfished in person, and then when I check online, it's not happening. So connection is built in the follow-up and that interaction. So after your networking event or the first meeting is really the first step, but the real relationships start afterwards. And just for like a um very practical example. Andrea and I, that we are a product. Strat-Fin Consulting is a product of how we
Correct.
met, goodwill, trust. She not faking, I not faking, and we just don't fake together. And then
There you go.
those that consistency that comes up through our follow-up interactions. Because we realized that we weren't performing. We realized that, oh, Andrea really is a very much a G when it comes to all things accounts and finance. Like she bad. Oh, for those of you who are not from Trinidad, she's very, very good. Right?
Yes, we a little reverse thing here in Trinidad, but
Yeah,
yes,
and I live in strategy land. It's
correct. All the time,
all the
all day, every day. Strategy land.
every day. Strategy land and teaching land. Like I'm just always there. And so that interaction thereafter builds the trust because there is consistency, there is points of connection. And naturally out of that comes the collaborations that we are looking for. So I've seen people do this dangerous thing of I meet Paula at this event and I'm like, let's collaborate. You don't know Paula from Adam. Do you really know how consistent this person is? Do you really know what's going on in terms of their own business, their own landscape, their own reputation? Don't simply align. Let the interactions thereafter deepen the familiarity because that deepened familiarity continues to reinforce trust and builds the opportunity. So you need a little follow-up system. So networking events are just one part. What do you do after?
Yeah.
What do you do after? I've seen so many times and we've been guilty of it. We go to the networking events, we take the photos, be like, it's amazing. 2 days later, 3 days
What's next?
later, you
There
can't
has to be a strategy for the what's next.
what
And I'm driven to think about something. I don't know people who might remember the movie Finding Nemo, right? The whole concept of Finding Nemo was the fish trying to find back, the father was trying to find back his son or whatever, right? But there's a scene at the very end of the movie where the fish that were in the fish tank, the entire movie was, well, their little side plot was them trying to escape from the fish tank,
yes.
right? That they would take. And they keep all these different plans, how to get out of the fish tank, 3, 4 different attempts. The closing scene is they eventually do escape, right? They do thing and they escape. And when they escape out of the fish tank, they cross the road. They cross the road, the busy road, in a bag, and they hop and they hop and they got into the ocean. And then they all look at each other and they went, "Okay, what's next?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm always, when I think about strategy and when I think about steps, I always am driven to that, because like their entire modus operandi was just get out of the tank, and nobody thought about, oh, so when we get out of the tank, how are we going to get out of the little plastic bags? Like they were just floating
Exactly.
in
And
the
that,
plastic bags, and they were like, what's next?
so
Nobody knew what to do. So
literally,
what's next after the networking?
you're in the sea of opportunity, but you can't take advantage of it. And so
Correct.
we have to be careful about that, right? And so now this kind of piggybacks now on what we spoke about before, where you go in and you pitch a bunch of business cards and you don't know anybody. But imagine now you go to the networking event and you have two, maybe three meaningful conversations. It is so much easier to have follow-up interactions, so much easier to build relationships because you don't need everybody. You just need the key people. You just need that
Correct.
one person, that one conversation. Andrea and I, one, we aligned, we had a good conversation, we had good follow-up conversations. Now we just talk a little too much. But we working though, all right? And coming out
Right.
from that has an amazing collaboration that is formalized now because again, collaborations, just aside, but collaborations is also kind of a legal construct. So you have to be careful who you are aligning your brands with. Not all visibility, we want the visibility, but at what cost? Not all visibility is good visibility. So that third pillar of interaction is your follow-up thereafter. Get over the hype and figure out who to make contact with. And the truth is, the reason that we are often stuck with this is because you talk to so many people, but did not connect with that many people. So you spoke to a lot of people, but you didn't connect. And if you're not connecting, you're like, it literally feels like cold pitching when you send them a message,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Because you did not, people can't remember you. And what Dana said there about there being two or three conversations, that is real, right? And this is, I go back to my experience where when I left that first couple events, when I couldn't talk to 10 people, right? And I still had the batch of cards in my hand, right? And but it was because I probably spoke to two or three people and I had lengthy conversations with them,
Yeah.
right? That's more manageable and that's more realistic than just trying to go around the room with the 10 people and sharing out all your business cards. Because then when I reach out to those people afterwards, I don't have to describe myself a lot because they remember.
I
I just need to say,
remember.
hi, it's Andrea, we met at so and so. I'm the accountant, and you find, oh, right, yes, you're the accountant girl. Yes. And you remember the conversation. Picture if you met 50 people and you just shook everybody's hand. When you try to reach out now, how are you going to describe yourself so that you could be memorable enough for the person to pick you out of
Yeah.
all those interactions?
Exactly. And that's what we have to bear in mind. So here we go now. The final element of effective networking or successful networking is your branding. And so your presence is your message. And so this now is what we have given to you is counterintuitive to a lot of what you said. We focus so much on the branding. We focus so much on how we look and what we say about ourselves and our handles and all of that. That's the last part because after I've not gone through this valuable space, right? And they're like, oh my God, can I have your number? Can I have your Instagram? Can I have a whatever and whatever concerning you? Because they now actually already know what your values are. They already know about you because you've had a meaningful conversation. And so your last thing about your branding is that you need to be careful that you have consistency in your messaging all across your spaces. That's the last part, right? Because that is going to build the trust. That is going to ensure that everything is going the way that you want it to go. So, quickly to recap, if you want to be successful at networking, you need goodwill, you need trust, you need that interaction, and lastly, you need to make sure that your branding is consistent. Yeah? So, Andrea, over to you now. Now that we give them all of this, what do you think they should be doing? What is their hustler to CEO move?
Right. So this brings us to our final segment, guys, from hustler to CEO. This is that segment where we give you that one action that you could take to shift yourself to making CEO moves in your business. And what better CEO move is there than doing your networking better? Right? So, what is the key shift that we want to leave you with? The key shift is to stop treating networking as a numbers game. You need to start seeing it as a strategic growth tool. We always talk on this show about growth and about strategy. And anything that you should have learned by now is that strategy is not a today for today. Strategy is not quick. Strategy is a long game. So if you are going to these events where what you are trying to do is to give out as many cards as possible and shake as many hands as possible, that's not going to lead you down the right path. Remember, I spoke about my own experience where going to these events and maybe only connecting with 2 or 3 people, and that's okay because that is more manageable and that allows you to form a deeper connection with one person, right? Because if you keep treating it as a numbers game, it's not going to go anywhere. So, the action now to go with that, well, the action is identify a group, a professional group, or an event that you can go to. And you're going to that event with a clear goal and focus to form at least one good connection and relation that leads to a relationship. So you're going to this one event to connect with at least one person that you could walk away with and start to build a relationship, right? And what better place to do that and what better place to start that journey is with our mastermind workshop that we're going to have in June, right? Money and Strategy Moves for Entrepreneurs MSME 2025 is here, and the theme for this year is building a legacy business. So if you would like to come to an event that is different, that promotes business growth, that promotes collaboration, what better event to start your networking journey than our event that is going to be held in June, 16th to the 17th of June, 2025. Visit our website for more information, msmett.com.
So thank you guys so much. Please ensure that you subscribe to our channel. Ensure that you share this episode with anybody that you know is struggling with networking. Leave a comment about what stands out to you. And we will see you again at our next episode. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.